Windows 10 versus Windows Vista. Hello guys, Bingocat here, and today we are back with another operating systems comparison video. It's been a while since I've done a video like this, so let's get right into it. So today I'll be comparing Windows 10 Pro 64-bit versus Windows Vista Business, also 64-bit. As you guys can see, they're both running in VMware Workstation like normal on a Windows 10 machine. And I gave them both the exact same system specs. Now why is this? Because the minimum specs between Windows Vista and Windows 10 really are not that different, and it is honestly one of the things that I love about Windows 10. Alright, so the Windows Vista minimum specifications, if you wanted to run Vista Home Premium, Vista Business, or Vista Enterprise, or Vista Ultimate, you need a 1 GHz or faster processor, 1 GB of system memory, a DirectX 9 class graphics card, and at least 15 GB free of hard disk space. In order to run Windows 10, you also need only a 1 GHz or faster processor, 1 GB of RAM for the 32-bit version of the operating system, but they bumped it up to 2 GB of RAM for the 64-bit version of the operating system. You need 16 GB free hard disk space, or 20 GB if you want to run the 64-bit edition of Windows 10. And you also need a DirectX 9 or later graphics card. As you guys can see, the minimum specs for Windows 10 were virtually not different at all from Windows Vista. The only thing that really changed was now you need 2 gigs of RAM for the 64-bit edition of Windows, where back in the Vista days you only needed 1 GB of RAM. And hard disk space has increased, but not by that much. It only increased a single gigabyte for the 32-bit version of the operating system and 5 for the 64-bit version of the operating system. You know, that's really not that much. It's been 10 years since Vista has been released, so it's actually kind of cool to see system specs remain the exact same 10 years later, because for the most part, what you can do if you really want to is you can take Windows 10 and install it on a Vista era computer, no problem, and that is really neat. Now, if you wanted to install Windows Vista on a 2002 computer, chances were really high that you were pretty much out of luck. I don't want to say it was impossible, but it was highly unlikely you could get Vista to even run on there. And even if you got it to run on there, it just didn't run that smoothly. So let's go ahead and turn on both operating systems here. Windows 10 is probably going to win the boot race, but it's because I had a little error message on Vista over here. And plus, Windows 10 has fast boot enabled. As you guys can see, Windows 10 booted up pretty quickly. Vista wasn't that bad either, though. So 10 versus Vista. By the way, if you didn't know, Vista, recently Microsoft ended support for Vista, so there are no more security updates for Windows Vista. So unless you plan on disconnecting your computer from the internet, hang on. I forgot I recently installed Discord on Windows 10 Pro over here. This icon isn't working for some reasons, or isn't displaying correctly, so let's just get rid of it. Alright, so Windows 10 versus Vista. Like I was saying, Vista is 10 years old now. Now this build of Windows is indeed the creator's update, so it's only a couple of months old. It's really not that old at all. So first glance at both operating systems, they look a little bit different, but they look fundamentally similar, like most versions of Windows I've compared since Windows 95. You still have your recycle bin in the top left corner by default. This Firefox icon obviously wasn't here in Windows 10 by default. It's because I installed Firefox for some reason. I don't remember why. But the first thing you'll notice is that Vista has a little sidebar here where all your gadgets are displayed. And some people might know them as widgets, but they haven't been included in Windows since Windows 8, but they were included with Windows 7. And I like gadgets because it is able to display useful information on your desktop by just a quick glance. The CPU meter over here has always been my favorite, just a super quick glance at the CPU usage. And then you have neat stuff like you can see a slideshow of pictures over here, or you can see an RSS feed, or the stocks, for example, if you really want to. Now, you didn't have to have this sidebar here. You could minimize it. by just clicking exit, or you could also drag the gadgets off the sidebar. I'm not going to exit Windows sidebar for now. Now, Windows 10, since it doesn't have a sidebar, what it has, and this is something they introduced in Windows 8 almost infamously, is live tiles on the start menu. It's just basically over-glorified large icons. But the special thing about tiles is that the information can change dynamically, meaning that like the weather icon, like right here, for example, can display the weather on it. Like right now, this says it's 89 degrees in Washington somewhere. Yeah, Washington. Don't know if it's a state or Washington, D.C., but either way, 89 degrees. And this can change, like, you're seeing, like, right now the Twitter icon is changing between different tweets. And, like, the news icon is changing between news stories. So, basically, the entire point of live tiles is this was to replace desktop gadgets. My VMs seem to be a little bit slow for some reason. Like I was saying, live tiles were meant to replace desktop gadgets. And the reason Microsoft claims they discontinued desktop gadgets is because desktop gadgets are full of security holes. And plus, the other reason they claim they discontinued desktop gadgets was Windows 8 was designed to be very touch-oriented. And gadgets on the desktop just really, I guess, aren't super touch-oriented. I don't know. If you look at the start menu for both operating systems, they look a little bit different. Now, Windows 10, on the original build of Windows 10, it reminded me more of the start menu from Windows Vista. However, it's been changed a little bit since the original version of Windows 10. The first thing you see when you open the Windows 10 start menu by default is your live tiles over here, and all your apps over here on the left side, along with your most used apps and recently used apps. Windows Vista, it's a little bit different. When you open the start menu, you see your recently used programs right here. Then you have pinned programs, and then you have, or maybe not pinned like most used programs, and then you have your all programs list right here. Now, one thing I want to point out about the all programs or all apps list is Windows 10, no matter if it's just an icon or a folder, lists everything alphabetically. Windows Vista lists icons first and then folders second. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I thought in XP was folders first, icons second, but I don't remember at the current moment. And then the other thing about the Vista start menu, it lists shortcuts to frequently access points in your computer over here, like your documents folder, your pictures folder, your recent items, the computer, the shutdown commands, etc. Windows 10 by default, it doesn't look like it actually has that stuff, but it actually does. It's just not forefront and center by default. And what you can do over here is you can actually change these icons that display over here. Like I have it set so the downloads folder, a link to that displays, and same thing with documents and admin. And you can change whatever, you can change it to whatever you want to display over here. Like if you go to taskbar settings, and then I think I have to go to, where are we? You have to go to start, and then you click choose which folders appear on start. Like if I wanted a link to File Explorer to appear there, but I didn't want my documents folder to appear there, all I have to do is change the settings up here. I go to the start menu, and you guys may notice that there's no link anymore to the documents folder. Now you can actually kind of do something like this in Vista and Windows 7 for that matter. All you have to do is go to your taskbar settings again, click start menu, click customize, and you can choose to hide or display shortcuts over here on the right side of the start menu. Like let's say for example I want to display the run command, which isn't there by default. All I have to do is click run command, click OK, and click apply. And you may notice that there's now a run shortcut there. If I want to get rid of it, I just go here and click the checkbox again, click OK, click apply, and the run shortcut is gone. Just like that. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, to be honest with you guys, I don't really use the live tiles that much because I'm more of a person if I want to see information Since programs and apps open really fast nowadays, I just open the app I want to use to see the information. I don't really need live tiles. And honestly, I just turn live tiles off. I unpin all of them over here and then decrease the size of my start menu, so it's just the all apps list. But I guess it's a nice option to have tiles there. The other thing I like about the Windows 10 start menu is if I clicked A, for example, it zooms out and allows me, if I want to go straight to, let's say, programs that start with the letter H. I can click that and then I'm here. Vista, you can't do any such thing. Icons are noticeably smaller in the start menu in Vista, and they're noticeably bigger in the start menu in Windows 10, and that's because they're trying to accommodate touchscreens, which, you know, it's not a super huge deal. I like how condensed they are in Vista, but it's not like you can't find what you need in Windows 10. I personally don't have a touchscreen on this computer, so the large icons are kind of pointless, but that's just my personal opinion. Now, if you look at the default programs that come with both operating systems, there's a lot of differences between both operating systems, but there are also a lot of similarities. First things first, the default web browsers that come with both operating systems. Windows 10 comes with the newer Microsoft Edge at this point of recording on July 3rd, 2017. Edge is about 2 years old, but they've improved Edge since then. However, Vista by default includes Internet Explorer 7, and Internet Explorer 7 for its time, in my personal opinion, wasn't a bad web browser. It was certainly a heck of a lot better than Internet Explorer 6, but it was still nowhere near as good as Firefox for basically anything. It wasn't faster, it wasn't necessarily more secure. The main reason people liked Internet Explorer 7 over 6 was mainly, to be honest, because you could finally have tabs in Internet Explorer. So that's the main thing I liked about Internet Explorer 7. It wasn't totally bad for its time, but it wasn't the best web browser either. And like Internet Explorer 6, from what I recall, didn't follow web standards that great either, but it was still an improvement on the bright side, I guess. Now, Edge, on the other hand, Edge is a heck of an improvement from any version of Internet Explorer. It's typically faster. I haven't really noticed it that much in the real world because Internet Explorer 11 was already pretty fast. And I don't notice it being any faster than, let's say, Chrome or Firefox. But besides speed, it's just overall a better looking web browser. Much, much cleaner in my personal opinion. And overall, I like Edge better as a browser, to be honest with you. Like, for the heck of it, let's load some web pages to compare what they look like. And, oh look, my browser is no longer supported. What a pity. Let's go to Yahoo. I personally don't read Yahoo articles, but I have nothing against you if you do. But Yahoo's homepage has been traditionally busy and has changed a lot over time, so I'm curious to see what it'll look like in both web browsers. Okay, it didn't load that bad in this web browser. Okay. Let's go to, now, let's go to another website, like let's go to Amazon.com. Alright, so Internet Explorer 7 isn't loading websites as bad as I thought they would. I mean, this website is still usable in Internet Explorer 7, even though Amazon claims it's no longer supporting Internet Explorer 7. Obviously, it's easier to use it in Microsoft Edge, obviously. What's another website I can test? Let's try eBay. Alright, here's a website that doesn't display correctly in Internet Explorer 7 at all. Looks pretty terrible over here in Internet Explorer 7, where an Edge, you know, it's obviously fully workable, fully usable. And Edge, by the way, abides to web standards a lot better than Internet Explorer does. Like, a lot better. let's take a look at the control panel. I always like taking a quick glance at the settings of both operating systems. So Windows 10, more or less, the settings app is now the main place to go to configure settings in Windows, but because they haven't finished the migration of everything to the settings app, you also still have the legacy control panel here to configure some settings, and personally I like the classic view over the category view, but that's just my opinion. And you have all sorts of different settings you can configure in Windows. I'm not going to go over each individual setting, but there are some things in Vista that aren't present in Windows 10, and some things in Windows 10 that aren't present in Vista. Like in Windows 10, you can choose to have a Windows to Go USB if you want. I don't believe you can do that in Vista. Vista, of course, you could obviously configure the Windows sidebar settings. You can't do that at all in Windows 10. And a lot of this stuff is the exact same, like the user accounts, even the icons are the exact same, and programs and features. And, you know, miscellaneous things like that. Now, if you go to the settings app, on the other hand, in Windows 10, they don't give you a classic view, unfortunately, but usually I just wind up searching for the setting that I want to find anyways instead of hunting down the setting. And it gives you options like apps or accounts. But if you're to go and look at some of the other default programs included with both operating systems, Windows Vista does include a nice little link here to default programs. If you want to get to that in Windows 10, you gotta go into the settings app. Now, Vista included Windows Defender, but it was only good for pretty much protecting against spyware. You still needed to download a separate antivirus program if you wanted full antivirus protection. Windows 10, they made it so you don't need to do that anymore. Ever since Windows 8, Windows Defender has been a full antivirus program. It's not the best antivirus program in the world, but it's one of the least obtrusive antivirus programs. Now, if you were to install like McAfee or Norton or even like AVG or Avast, chances are you'll get pop-ups that are basically advertisements for their products, and that is really annoying. And usually a lot of third-party antivirus software like noticeably bogs down your system performance. It's not as noticeable nowadays as it was back in like the mid to late 2000s, but it still does bog down your system performance a little bit. Windows Defender doesn't really do that, but it still, I believe, has one of the worst detection rates out of all antivirus programs. So if you run Windows Defender, I highly recommend downloading Malwarebytes, just the free version, and running that in addition to Windows Defender, just like a manual scan with Malwarebytes. Once a week or so, or once a month, and running Windows Defender in real time is good enough as far as I'm concerned. You might have different opinions, but Windows Defender is better than having no antivirus program, in my opinion. Some people won't like it when I say this, but I think that in 2017, you still need an antivirus program in Windows. Like, no exceptions. You need an antivirus program in Windows. And the reason I say this is because you're better safe than sorry, in my personal opinion. Some people go, oh, I have common sense. I don't need antivirus. And I am here to tell you that there are threats on the internet. You have no idea what they are. There are bits of malware you have no idea what can do to your system. And no matter how much common sense you have, it won't protect you against zero-day exploits or just any other kinds of holes in your software. And you will get infected eventually without antivirus. I'd say it's more of a matter of when and less of a matter of if. But I feel like in Windows, you need antivirus. There are other operating systems like, let's say, for example, like iOS is so sandboxed in comparison to Windows. You don't really need an antivirus program there. But I think for something a little more open like Windows or even like Mac OS, you need antivirus, but that's just my opinion. Alright, so some of the other built-in programs for both operating systems. Now, Vista has Moviemaker. I'm kind of disappointed that Windows 10 didn't ship with a new version of Moviemaker, and they discontinued support for Windows Live Essentials 2012, which had the last version of Moviemaker in it, so I'm kind of disappointed you can't download that off of Microsoft's website officially, I believe. And Vista also had photo gallery, for example. Windows 10 technically doesn't have photo gallery, but it does contain photos, which is really similar to photo gallery. It just looks a lot more modern. But it also hides a lot more of the options by default, which I'm not a huge fan of. And then most of these apps listed over here are what Microsoft calls Universal Windows Pro apps. And the entire point of Universal Windows Pro is that supposedly it's easy to run these apps on pretty much whatever device you're on. Like if you had a Windows phone, for example, in theory, I believe you should be able to run the same version of Facebook that your desktop will run. And that's the awesome thing about Universal Windows Pro, but Windows still includes support for Win32 applications, aka traditional desktop applications. So the way Windows 10 does it for its first-party apps by default is it lists all the Universal Windows Pro applications first, and then it hides all the legacy Win32 apps in folders down here. Like, it still has a Windows accessories folder, just like Vista did. And then an administrative tools folder. Vista doesn't appear to have that. I believe it's no different than if you went under system tools though, and it doesn't appear to be different. And then there's also a PowerShell folder, and then a Windows system folder. And then what's under extras and upgrades over here? So all the Win32 and other legacy Windows applications are at the bottom, and the newer Universal Windows Pro apps are at the top. And you have all sorts of different little miscellaneous system tools. You don't have this in Windows 10, like Windows Anytime Upgrade. Now, you do have the Windows Marketplace, which I believe was just an earlier version of the Windows App Store. You also have a link to the Windows website where over here it includes several tools that were introduced mainly in Windows 7 or Windows 8, like steps, like problem steps recorder, or what else? The snipping tool, I believe, was actually in Vista. Yeah, Vista was the one that actually introduced the snipping tool. Now, several of these built-in Windows tools, though, got replaced with more modern versions, like the voice recorder, for example. That's included in Windows 10. It's just called, I believe, voice recorder, where in Vista, for example, it was called the sound recorder, and they both do literally the exact same thing. They just have different user interfaces. Now, here's something that I've never really actually tested out in these operating system comparisons videos. Let's see what games are included on both operating systems, shall we? So Vista, as far as its games go, it does include games in there. However, I have to turn on the games because this is the business version of Windows, and that means that games are disabled by default, because in an enterprise setting you typically would not need games enabled. Now, you can of course enable them though, at the very least. Let's go ahead and enable the games in Vista. Now, even though this is Windows 10 Pro, which means it's technically supposed to be more of a business-oriented or professional-oriented operating system, it includes games by default and a lot of what I would call consumer-based applications. But as far as games that are included on Windows 10 goes, it includes Candy Crush Soda Saga by default. And I have no problems with them including games like this by default, but you see the problem, what happened in the past. And Microsoft says they're not going to do this anymore, by the way, but I don't know if it's actually going to come to fruition, their word. The problem in the past was if you upgraded from one Windows 10 version to another, and you uninstalled Candy Crush Soda Saga on your previous version of Windows 10, it would go ahead and install Candy Crush Soda Saga again, and that was totally lame. But Microsoft claims they aren't going to do this anymore, so we'll see. So Windows 10 includes Candy Crush, and then It includes Solitaire, which, you know, is pretty much a staple with Windows. The only version of Windows that did not include Solitaire was Windows 8, and I don't believe Windows 8 included any games by default. It also includes Minecraft Windows 10 Edition, and we're going to go ahead and open that up. I believe it will just prompt me to sign in or something like that, but we could go ahead and open that up. And then it includes Paradise Bay. I have no idea what that game is, but I've seen that name before. And it also includes a link to Asphalt 8, but I don't believe that's actually installed on here by default. And same thing with Age of Empires Castle Siege. Windows Vista, on the other hand, it includes more traditional Microsoft games, I guess. A lot of the games in 95 XP, Vista, and 7 are really similar to each other. It includes Chess Titans, which is just 3D chess, Free Cell, Hearts, Inkball, Mahjong, Minesweeper, Purple Place, Solitaire, or Spider Solitaire. So let's go ahead and open up Solitaire, see how they're like compared to each other, and I hope I don't get asked to sign in. Okay, and I didn't get asked to get signed in, thank God. So this is just Klondike Solitaire, right? So I'm just gonna play a random deck. So as you can see, it seems to be a lot more, I guess, Solitaire seems more inclined to help me in the Windows 10 edition. Everything looks a little bit bigger and looks a little bit, I guess, a little bit more realistic in the Windows 10 version of Solitaire. The Vista version of Solitaire, on the other hand, when you open it up, it just gets straight into the game. And from what I can tell, it looks like the only version of Solitaire that you can play is Klondike Solitaire, but you can change the appearance to, let's say, red felt if you want to, and I believe you can do that in Windows 10. I don't imagine them not letting you do something like that. It gives you a lot of options here. Yeah, it lets you change the theme. Now, the thing that I don't like about the Windows 10 version of Solitaire is, look at this. There are ads on the bottom of the screen. You know what's fantastic about the Vista version of Solitaire? Look at this. No ads anywhere in Solitaire. Amazing, I know, right? Now, something I do want to see what the heck happens if I open it is Minecraft. Hopefully it doesn't ask me to sign in, but it might. Yeah, it wants me to sign in. Let's check out what the heck Paradise Bay is while I'm here. Alright, so it's by King, so it's probably just some puzzle matching game or something like that. Oh, by the way, as far as other games that are included in Vista, I don't know what Purple Place is, so let's give that, what the heck is this? And Paradise Bay, I guess, just closed on me in Windows 10. That's fantastic. Let's try that again. Maybe it doesn't like that I'm not signed in. Oh, so Purple Place, I thought it was just loading. No, it actually wants me to click around the Purple Place. What the heck is this? Can you help us fill orders? We are way behind schedule. Look at the cakes that appear on the TV and make matching cakes. Good luck. Oh, God. Okay, then. It's a heart shape. And then, I guess, some of this. Or maybe I have to do this. I gotta move it over. Oh, shoot, I already did this wrong. Oh, it actually sucks up the batter. I don't know why Vista includes a cake making game, but whatever floats Microsoft's boat. Cake matched. Now move your cake to the platform with a star so it can go to shipping. Sweet. Let's make one more cake for you guys. Round pan. Batter. I hear someone playing music. If you hear any music in the background, I'm sorry, but if you don't, just Whatever. Alright, so perfectly good cake. And I think we're done with this game. And then here's something else that I wasn't too familiar with. Oh, they do include another version of Solitaire, by the way, Spider Solitaire, but I'm not too familiar with what the heck Ink Ball is. Because to be honest, the only games that I really ever played in, let's say, XP, for example, I guess I have to get the balls over to this side. The only games I ever really played in XP was the pinball game that was included in there. And fun fact, the reason the pinball game was removed from Vista was because the programmers, I guess, could not make the pinball game work in Vista, and they decided it was simply too much of an effort and too much time to get it to work in Vista. So they just scrapped the idea of a pinball game entirely, which is really kind of a bummer because the pinball game in XP is indeed really fun. But you can download the pinball game from the internet and have it work perfectly fine on Windows Vista and 7 and 10. Oh, dang it. So I don't know what the Microsoft developers were doing wrong, if you know what I mean. Yeah, those games aren't that bad. Windows 10 does come with less games by default, but there are games you can download off the Windows Store that are free, like Microsoft Mahjong, for example, is pretty fun in my opinion. Vista does include a Mahjong game, Mahjong Titans, but I like the version that's included with Windows 10 just a little bit better. That's just my personal preference. At the end of the day, which one of these operating systems would I recommend using? Well, I'm going to have to say Windows 10 only because it's still supported though, and it's going to be supported until at least 2025. Vista, I think, was massively underrated. It just had a super bad release due to driver incompatibility issues, slowness issues. And after Service Pack 2, Vista was pretty stable and a pretty, I'd say, an overall fairly solid operating system choice, but Windows 7 was just better. And Windows 7, I've said this many times before, is basically just Windows Vista 2.0, but at the end of the day, I really can't recommend running Vista anymore. If you do need to run Vista for some reason or another, just run it in a virtual machine if possible, or you can dual boot it if you really want to. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, please like it. If you dislike this video, go ahead and dislike it if you want, but please tell me why. That would be awesome because I want to make better quality videos for you guys. Leave a comment down below in the description if you have something to say. Make sure to check out my Discord, Twitter, and Instagram, link down below in the video description. And as always, I hope to see you guys next time. Goodbye.